Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're well today. Hope you're staying safe. Today's video we are going to cover Marvel Avengers and just my thoughts on the game. As you guys would know if you've been with the channel for a while, I played the beta last weekend. I've posted several videos on that just to give you a flavour for the game, and today we are going to have a deep dive into kind of at least my thoughts on the game. Feel free to disagree with me, but yeah, I have some fairly strong opinions, and hopefully given the game launches on the 4th of September 2020, which is only a couple of days away, it might give you a little bit of a feel for the game and whether it's for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we will play some cinematics in the background as I'm talking, and yeah, I'll have some more specific footage as I go through my thoughts on the game. My thoughts on the game are all based around the beta. That's the best I can do to make a determination. Given how late in the day the beta became available before the game launched, I don't think there's much that is going to be changed as far as the campaign goes. I think that's pretty much locked in. I think the multiplayer part of the game obviously can be changed and fixed as they go through the months ahead, but I'm going to talk about the campaign and my experiences on the campaign. Unfortunately, on the weekend that this dropped, there was so much going on. I had to, in fact, move my whole gaming setup, so I only got a limited amount of time to play. So I have also referenced a number of content online and read a number of reviews to kind of get a balanced overall view, so that I give you a good kind of overview of this game and if it's for you. The other thing I would say is that this isn't generally the type of game that I would play, but however I did enjoy it. I saw the original gameplay and original kind of a number of people playing this, and it just looked so awesome that I had to jump in and have a wee go on it. And yeah, to the large part I wasn't disappointed. So let's get into talking about what we found with the beta, and the first story mission basically starts on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and it really is dressed up to be a tutorial, and it gives you great access to playing as various characters and getting a feel for the game and how each individual character is going to play. Now later we got through a little bit of the story mission. Unfortunately, I was just about to play a little bit more of the story mission and the beta finished, so I only really got through the Golden Gate Bridge sequence and then a little bit into the archives with the Hulk and Miss Marvel. So I really didn't get into some of the side missions that came a little bit later, and also progressing the main mission. But I think, you know, I played probably 2 or 3 hours of this game, and I think that was enough to give me a fairly good feel on how it plays. Let's start a little bit about talking about how the game actually looks. Well, it's very, very cinematic, as you're probably seeing by the footage that we're showing now. One thing that I didn't like was that there seems to be some kind of motion blur effect during the combat sequences, which makes the look of the game very soft. Now, my theory, and this is only my theory on why they've done this, is to do with the rendering, and you know, there's a lot of enemies and a lot going on in a lot of the combat sequences at times, so I think it's to help with the rendering. Now, I did go into the back end of the game to see in the settings to see if I could switch this off, and there's absolutely nothing to help you reduce that effect or improve it or switch it off. So that was a little disappointing for me, and that's more about being able to produce YouTube content and have it nice and sharp. And you know, I was recording in 1080 at 60 frames, and still it was very soft and a little bit blurry. Now, I did have some problems with my Elgato, as I've kind of stated in other videos and on my Discord, but I've certainly looked at other people's footage and they all suffer from the same, this kind of softness, and I think, you know, Square Enix really need to look at that. It's a little bit disappointing. Did it detract from how the game played? No, not at all, but yeah, just from a content provider point of view, I think that could be improved. Okay, before we get into the game and the gameplay, I'd like to address something that, you know, a few people have raised concerns about, and I fully understand that, and that is about the exclusive content for this game on the Sony PlayStation platform. Now, that really is about, you know, business and movie rights and all kinds of stuff that Sony own, and so it makes sense that they want to give PlayStation players some kind of you know, advantage, if you want to say, or some content that no other platforms will get, given that they have a business you know, business interest in Marvel. And I know they copped a lot of flack on the Spider-Man game for this, but I've done some reading up on this, and from our point of view, I really do not see it as a huge problem. The exclusive content for PlayStation really is a lot of kind of cosmetic stuff, rather than anything that would advantage you playing the game. You know, they're going to give you some exclusive weekly, daily, monthly challenges that Xbox and PC don't get. But apart from that, I really can't see anything that I'm concerned about, or, you know, as an Xbox player, would it stop me buying the game? Absolutely not. I can fully understand their business position on this, and but I know a lot of people have different views on this. So that's as far as what the exclusive content is and what I could find out from the various media sources on this. So personally, I couldn't really care. I don't really care about that. You know, good games are good games, and if it's not going to make me buy a PlayStation either, just to get that content. So let's get into a little bit of the specifics about the gameplay. Now, in the opening kind of sequences, certainly the first part of the campaign, I guess it's a basic tutorial. You get to play as several different characters. You get to play as Thor, Iron Man and Hulk and whatnot, and yeah, as you go a little bit deeper into the campaign, this kind of trend continues. Now, really nice to play as different characters in the initial opening sequence, just to get a feel for the game, get a feel for how the different characters play. The good thing is that the way that they have mapped the buttons as far as a light or heavy attack, regardless of what character you're playing, those buttons stay the same. It's really nice that even though he plays a different character, the button sequences stay the same, and the bumpers for special attacks and all that. So that's pretty good. I've got to say though, I'm not a fan of switching characters for different parts of the story. I can understand why it's done. I completely understand why it's been set up that way, but the way I like to play a game is to try and work on a specific character and through a whole campaign, and obviously buffing that character as we go and making it stronger. This switching back and forth really isn't for me. It's not my flavour. and it was, I've got to say, it was a little bit annoying as well. One of the big things that happened during that opening sequence was that at the very end of that opening sequence, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but you were thrust into a boss battle with a new character that you were still getting used to, and yeah, it made it even harder to try, and that boss battle I found was hard enough for me at least, and to try and beat a boss with a new character was a little bit taxing. I mean, we got there, and the game actually gave you some advantages so that you could actually kill that boss, but I've got to say, the different characters, even though the button sequences are the same, they do play all completely different, and therefore you're going to have to take some time to master each character. The other thing that kind of worries me is, and we'll talk about the gear leveling system in a minute, but once you get into the main kind of war table area, and you start to get side missions, the side missions have a recommended level that you should be at before you should attempt them. Now, the way that the storyline, or at least the way that the campaign played, I found that Miss Marvel was leveled up a lot more than anything else, any other character. So, you know, for instance, Miss Marvel, I got up to about a level 13 or 15 or something like that, whereas the Hulk was 6 or 7. Now, if the side mission is giving you a recommendation for a gear level, say 10, how the heck are we supposed to level Hulk up at level 6 to be able to play that mission? And I know I didn't quite get to that point in the beta, but I know from what I've seen and what I've read that if you do attempt a level 10 mission on level 6, you get absolutely cleaned up. So not sure how that's all going to work. It might have been just simply for the beta that they've done that, but yeah, this is kind of where things start to fall apart a little bit for me, playing different characters at different parts of the storyline, and then having, you know, traditional games like this always rely on you completing side missions to boost your character. So I'm hoping in the main game that that's been thought about, and that if your character's a lower level, then you're given side missions that you can actually play to push your levels up. But it does mean that, you know, potentially you're going to have to go back and forward a little bit with different characters to be able to progress the storyline, which is not unusual, but it is unusual that it's different kind of characters that you're going to have to play as and master, and etc. So hope that makes sense. So yes, I'm not really a fan of being forced to grind a whole heap of characters. I prefer to just put all my efforts and my gaming time into one character and play that, and what you're going to have to do is you're basically going to have to grind the various characters up to make sure that they're all effective and on a certain level for combat. I'm not sure if that's been thought through well enough for this game. So we talked a little bit about the gear-based system, and how do you get gear? Well, basically you play in game, but you are going to find there are so many loot boxes lying around the place, it's not funny. Now, in the footage that I'm showing at the moment, I decided to have a look around, I think it was kind of Tony Stark's laboratory stroke archive, whatever you want to call it. And I found a ton of stuff, a ton of different gear, just in loot crates all over the place. Now, one of the problems that I had doing that though was I found this gear that was better than what I had, and then I walked maybe about a minute or 30 seconds, I found another loot crate and it gave me another of the same item that was even better. So I was constantly changing gear, and that was a little annoying. I've got to say, in the campaign and the kind of fighting sequences, etc., those loot crates are less obvious, but still in that sequence where we played as Miss Marvel. Certainly I found about 3 or 4 loot crates in the opening area before I started any fighting with enemies. So I think the loot crates need to be spread out a little bit more. The second thing that I would say, and we're going to go into the gear and have a look at the UI and the gear in a minute, but the second thing I would say is it's very, very difficult to determine when you pick up new gear or improved gear what kind of buff it's giving you or what kind of improvements it's giving you. Even in game, when I've added improved gear, it was very, very hard to see how my character had improved, and I think it's a very important point in a gear-based game. I've played many games that are gear-based, such as Ghost Recon and The Division, etc., Assassin's Creed, etc. There's got to be a noticeable buff to increase your gear level. Otherwise, it's just cosmetic, and in my opinion, why have it there if it's only a cosmetic thing? To some degree, if it is a cosmetic thing, make it cosmetic only and not have a buff. But there needs to be a heap of work done on that area of the game. I'm sorry, but it's just not good enough at this point to be able to just pick up gear. And obviously, given that what I said earlier, where the game, especially side missions, is dependent on what your gear level is, you would think that if it's asking you to be a level 13 gear, then that gear has got to give you some kind of advantage, or at least help you play the higher level side missions and campaign missions. I'm not sure as well how this is going to play in multiplayer, as I didn't really get a chance to play any multiplayer in the beta testing. So there are some question marks in my mind as far as how the gear and picking up and finding new gear in the looting system works, and what kind of advantage that's going to give you in the overall gameplay. So let's move on to the gear and the user interface in general. So as you would have seen by the footage we've already put up, you can progress your gear. You just basically run around the map and find those loot boxes, pick up gear, and generally what will happen is you'll get better and better gear. Well, when I say better and better gear, at least the gear score gets higher and higher and higher. So basically how the gear works, and it's not totally obvious when you first open up things and start changing gear around, is that there is actually 4 main gear slots that do different things. And so one improves your melee abilities, one helps with your ranged abilities, one of them is a defensive buff, and then the last one helps with your heroic abilities. So that's not totally obvious when you first kind of come into the game, and certainly something that I had to kind of research a little bit. I didn't pick up on it. In addition to that, you also have 3 artifact slots, and what the artifacts seem to do is give kind of general buffs like elemental resistance to certain enemies. It might give you some kind of ability to find better gear around the place, but it's again not totally sure or not totally clear what the artifacts actually do other than that. There's also 8 different resources that you have to collect. Now, your gear, once you find better gear, you can break down the gear that you've just discarded. I suspect that will give you some resources, and as you collect the resources, you can actually buff each of those different types of gear. I'm assuming that when you buff, say for instance you decide to buff your melee gear, that as you boost it, that boost will carry through as you pick up better and better or higher and higher leveled gear. I would suspect that that's permanent. I'm not totally sure on that, but I would suspect that's how it works. And all of this kind of better gear or increased level gear will improve what you're doing as far as your stats, the way the character plays. And obviously all your missions will scale up, especially your side missions. It will give you a suggested level of side mission that you should attempt with a certain level of gear. Now, I've frozen the footage for a minute just to have a look at this in a little bit more detail. Now, you will see that up in the kind of top central area, there is a rating for each of the different gears. And when you click on something, and I must say I'm more focused on looking at an increased gear. I didn't pick up on it actually has a title, says defensive gear, so it tells you that. You can see in the top left corner it has a power level, which is an average of the 4 gear. If you have a look at most of them are actually 9, but there is a level 6 there. Down at the bottom there's the different resources that you need to collect, and then you have the boost, power boost available, nimble protection vest, and it has this particular one is a Stark Industries vest, which I don't know what, that's a slightly different type or brand of protection vest. Not sure what that actually does as opposed to other gear, what the Stark Industry ones. It is a green power level. I would think that we're definitely going to have different colours. You can see there's at least 2 different colours there, white and green. So I would think, given it is gear based, it would be the same as normal games. And you'll have different levels, and they'll become rarer and rarer, and they'll have more unique abilities on them. This is a level 9, a precision 5, not sure what that actually means. And then there's a gear perk which gives 13.7 chance of perfect evading at short defenses, and then there's a stars above that, so there I would think you can collect this same gear will increase stars, but again I'm not sure what that does. And then what have we got next? So next boost is power 10. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Resources required, and they're linked to that boost button that you see at the very bottom of that panel. You need so many resources to boost things. I did boost some of gear. I have no idea when I hold the boost what that actually does, but there you go. That's a little bit more of a deep dive into all the elements of the gear and how it works. So as far as gear-based games goes, it's not that much different to what you've probably seen in the past. If you're used to playing that type of gear-based game, it's pretty straightforward. What's not kind of clear is how the different elements work, and of course that's pretty normal. I mean, we've only had a small amount of time to play this, and it is a beta, so I'm sure as you get into the game and you play it a little bit more, that will all become a little bit more obvious how that works, and I'm sure there will be plenty of people out there on the tubes giving you the explanation to that as and when the game drops. And yeah. So while we're here, let's have a little bit of a look-see through the rest of the user interface. So there's various things up at the top there, as you can see. There's cosmetics, we'll come back to that in a second. Collections, not sure what these do, but they kind of look interesting. You obviously find these as you're going through the map, but the one thing that was really interesting to me is the little panel that comes up, and you'll see it in a sec. There, right there. So I don't know if that helps to boost your character stats or not. It's not clear. A lot of this is not clear. Obviously, cosmetics, you can buy different outfits. I did have tokens to buy, but for some reason, it wouldn't unlock anything. That's pretty standard stuff. So you can change the look of your character in cosmetics. And there's different rarities of looks there. And finally, there's the gear. There's a skill tree for light attack, heavy attack, etc. So, yeah, pretty standard stuff. I think I need to play around a lot more with that user interface to understand it in more detail. But yeah, it's going to take some learning, I guess. But that's pretty normal with a new game. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. It just seems a bit vague at this point to what everything does. Okay, so to my final thoughts on this game. I think this game has a lot of potential. At the gate, I would say that the storyline feels a little bit thin for me personally. A lot of the elements of the game are not clear. Certainly, after you've played it for a couple of hours, the fighting feels a little bit grindy and the same, despite the fact that you're playing as different characters, etc. But overall, this game's pretty solid. I think it could be better. I think it could be much better, and I think as you understand the game a little bit more, you'll get a little bit more into it. For me, though, I probably will at some point buy this game and play it, but I wouldn't buy it straight at the gate. But of course, every gamer's a little bit different in what they expect and what they like. I just feel that they've used the Marvel Avengers name and put a game around it. I'm sure the devs have spent a long time developing this game, but in my opinion it just feels a little bit thin at this point, and it seems to be taking from things like Diablo 3 and Destiny and stuff, and Anthem and like that. That's what it reminds me of a little bit. But I hope it is one of those games similar to Ghost Recon Breakpoint, where they will continue to improve it. The base is pretty good, and yeah, I'd probably give it about a 5 or 6 out of 10 at this point. So I hope you've enjoyed this little look-see, this kind of deep dive into Marvel Avengers. I've made a kind of assessment of it based on what I've been able to see in the beta. Obviously, when games come out, they can be quite different in how they play, and the devs would have improved a number of elements. What concerns me a little is the fact that this game is the betas came out so close towards the launch date, so the improvements will have to be done on the fly as the game develops, rather than have the beta a few months out and tweak it before launch. So that's what I had to say on that. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, a like rating's always appreciated, and I'd like to hear your feelings on the game down below in the comments. I always put these kind of preview or review videos out just as constructive criticism in my opinion, so I'm sure your opinions might differ to mine, and we will catch you next time on Gaming for XP. See ya.